Hello, everyone. Today I have Benjamin here who just got accepted into medical school. How are you doing, Benjamin?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Elon?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me.
All right, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Now, the first question I always like to ask is what really inspired you to get into medicine?
That's a hard question. I feel like there's a lot of things that inspired me. I do think that the one thing that I can think back at is my grandfather. He was an oncologist and pediatrician in Iran, and I think his dedication to medicine made me want to go down the same path.
Yeah, and what was kind of your timeline into going into medical school?
Yeah, so I spent 5 years in undergrad. I'm kind of a super senior. And after I took a 2 year gap year and I applied during the second gap year, and then the rest is where I'm at now.
Yeah. Why did you decide to take those gap years and what did you do during that time?
Yeah, so I feel like it was really important for me to have that time to be able to prepare and get everything situated so that I could be the best applicant possible. I had to take a lot of time out of my undergrad to be able to be a caregiver for my mom. So I wasn't able to do a lot of the extracurriculars that I felt were important for me to do to be able to get into medical school, and also to just have more interest in medicine and understand more about what I'm getting myself into. So those gap years gave me the time to be able to reflect and also think about, why do I want to go into medicine and what does it look like? So that's kind of the reason.
Yeah. What kind of student would you recommend would take gap years?
I think it could be for every student. I don't think that it's specific to your circumstances. Obviously, if you weren't able to do the things that you felt were necessary to go to medical school, then taking that gap year is really important, and it's specific to you. It's not a situational thing, but obviously if you feel like you weren't able to do research, or weren't able to join a laboratory you really like, or be a part of a medical office and you really wanted to before you go to medical school, then I say definitely take that gap year and do it. I think that there is two factors to consider, one of them being, what am I going to do with this time? Is it going to be well spent? Is this something that I could use wisely? So for myself, I felt that I was the most productive when I had a time pressure and I was able to set expectations for myself. And you'll be surprised how much you can get done when you have a time pressure. But if you're giving yourself multiple gap years, you might fall into a lull and not be able to do the things that you really need to do to get into medical school. Not saying that there's anything wrong with taking multiple gap years, but being intentional about it is really important. So I definitely think if you're the type of person who's intentional and wants to use this time to explore multiple specialties and really understand if medicine is for you, then I think definitely go for it.
Yeah. Have you heard of this concept called Parkinson's law?
I haven't, but I think you're going to tell me right now.
So basically, what it says is work will fill the time that you give it. So if you have an assignment and it's supposed to be due in like 2 months, it's going to take 2 months. But if you
Mhm.
say I'm going to do this in 2 weeks, you're going to do it in 2 weeks. So
Mhm.
you kind of use that to make sure you get everything done on time and have everything done in a timely manner. What was your like strategy to make sure that you would like get everything done in a timely manner and not take too many gap years?
Yeah, it was really different for each point in my life. But when I got to the stage when I was applying to medical school, and you're going to hear this over and over again, the most important thing when you're applying to medical school is applying early and being able to have everything finished and submitted before everyone else, or at the same time as everyone else. And I actually was supposed to apply during my first gap year. However, I didn't feel like I had all of the necessary resources and experiences under my belt to be able to do my application justice. However, what I did is I started early on my personal statement, and I did a bunch of secondaries for schools that I wanted to apply to. And that really helped me when it came time for the next cycle to have all of those materials not necessarily ready, because it's never going to be ready and it's never going to be perfect. And right until the moment you feel like you're going to submit, you're going to feel like this could be better, but you're just going to have to submit it. And if you have preparation ahead of time, then you're able to go into it with better material and feel like you're able to submit it on time. Because if you're given, there's no necessarily deadline to submit your application, and the deadlines that they provide aren't the ones you should follow. So for example, the deadline for UCLA medical school, your primary application should be submitted by November 2nd. UCLA has already filled a lot of their seats for medical school. They're still interviewing people, but November 2nd is way too late. You should be having everything done way ahead of time. So that's the difficult part. They don't give you a deadline, but you need to set a deadline for yourself. So the moment that the application opens, I'm going to have it submitted. And you have plenty of time. You could look at the application and see what it looks like and what you want to add. It's no secret. And you could do that ahead of time. And then right when the application opens up, you can fill everything out and then be able to send it on its way when the submission window opens. And getting really familiar with the timelines as well is really important, because the timelines are confusing, and there's 3 different application portals that are out there. One of them is the AMCAS application portal, the DO application portal, which is, the name is blanking on me, and then the TEMDAS, which is the Texas application portal. And if you're applying via those 3 application portals, you want to make sure that you have everything completed ahead of time and know when each one opens up. So that's what I would focus on.
Yeah, because I thought like from like my research, the one I'm most familiar with is AMCAS. So I thought they opened up in like early May, or like late May, early June. So saying that, oh, UCLA is their deadline is November 2nd, that feels super off, because applying early is like June 1st or something. And I never even heard of that. So that's good to know, I guess.
Yeah, all of these schools, most of these schools rather, are rolling admissions. So you need to submit earlier. Earlier is better. And you're right, it opens up May 1st for MCAS. It might be different in the future. And then you could submit May 28th. And then it takes a couple weeks for it to verify. And in case there's any problems with your application, they will send you an email to say, hey, can you fix this? And the earlier that you have it, the faster it gets verified and the quicker you get secondaries. And if you have your secondaries finished and completed, because all of those are posted and you can look at them ahead of time, you're able to fill those out, and then you could copy and paste them into the application. And that's totally fine to do. There might be an extra question or two. And schools want you to do this. They want you to get familiar with their questions ahead of time. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. What was kind of your approach to writing all of these essays, like the personal statement and all of the secondaries? Like, what was the timeline that you did? What would you recommend to other people? Kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, what I did was very different to what I would recommend for other people. What I recommend is that you start as early as possible. Your personal statement is your reason why you want to enter medicine. And the earlier that you write that and you know that, the more determined and more clear of a path you have towards medicine. And I think that a lot of these primary applications and secondary applications, as painful as they are, they're so useful for understanding your why and really digging deep. So I would suggest that as early as you know you want to go into medicine, do a shitty first draft of your primary application and make sure that you write as much as you can and as much detail as you can, and then take that and edit it again and edit it again, and then put it away for 6 months and then look at it again and see, okay, is this still true? What can I take away from this? I even think that another really useful thing that I wish that I could have done is make a double AMC account early, go into the application and make complete the application like I'm applying to medical school, and put experiences that I hope to do or will do, and fill out the whole thing, input the classes I want to take, the grades I want to get, and then print that out and put on my mirror so that I could look at it every day and see, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do today. These are the steps I'm going to take so that this application can be my reality and what I can submit with, and something that I feel like I'm proud of. So that's what I wish I did. What I did is I, started my personal statement a year prior, and then I edited it, and then I scrapped it, and then I edited it and I scrapped it, which is totally okay to do, because you want to submit something that you're proud of and reflects your authentic reason why you want to enter medicine. And it's something that is really important to do. So I went through so many different personal statements. I went through so many different secondary questions and would scrap them. So I would say that write early and write often so you can really get to your why.
It's like for me,
Mm-hmm.
I just started college. So are you suggesting that, like, not this is a bad thing, I'm just kind of like shocked, I've never heard this before, that I should kind of have the personal statement mapped out and basically kind of edit that as I go through college, or not, I guess.
Yes, I think that that's an amazing idea. I know that this is a very new piece of advice and it's not something that many people talk about, but I do think that it is, if anything, at the very least, it's a good way to introspect and understand for yourself why you like medicine. You can think about it as a journaling method, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And then you could go back and edit it and get deeper and deeper, and keep all of your drafts so that you can look back at it. Because something about being young and just starting college and being so fresh into it is that you have a lot of enthusiasm and curiosity and dedication to medicine that you start to lose when you get older. Not to say that you can't continue to be dedicated to medicine and curious, but it's something that you have to actively work at. When you're younger, it's natural. And you want to look back at those prior iterations and those prior personal statements and understand why you wanted to enter into it in the first place so you could stay true to your path.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen for like all kinds of students, is remember your why. Because if you know your why, you can just focus like a lot better. And when rough patches come up, you know the goal, and that's what you're working towards. So that's a very good way of putting it, because initially what I was thinking was, oh my God, like I got to start right now. This is it's over. So that's a much better way of viewing it, and I'm probably going to do that now.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to remember your why if you write it down and you can go back and look at it. And I honestly think that this is a good practice to keep in every aspect of your life. So I think that when it comes, for me and for many pre-meds, writing is the hardest part of the whole process when it comes to the medical school application process, because we're used to taking exams and thinking analytically, and now we have to think creatively. So having a journal with your experiences, for example, if you leave an operating room and you had a really interesting experience, you should write about that in your journal, leaving out any HIPAA related information, of course, but making sure that you write in your journal what you experienced and how it impacted you or how you impacted someone else. And then when you go back and you're thinking about your experiences and you have questions that are asking about your experiences, you can pull from your journal and think about these things and reflect on them and write them. It makes it a lot easier. And also, you're going to not only be using this when you're writing, you're going to be using this when you're interviewing as well and having these conversations with the admission committee. So having all of these experiences in the back of your pocket is the reason why you're going to the OR. It's the reason why you're volunteering, in addition to your passion to it. But being able to plug this into your application is really important.
Yeah, like I said before, this is just this is good practice for if you're doing anything super academic. It takes a long time. If you're like wanting to do research and getting a PhD, or like nursing, aligning yourself with that can be so like exponentially important.
Definitely.
So, what do you think during your time helped you the most in getting into medical school?
Honestly, at this point in my life, it's my partner, Aaron. He's been such an incredible support system for me and has been the reason why I've been able to stay true on this path. Whether it's making me food when I come back from the clinic so that I have something to eat, or staying up with me until 2 a.m. So we could edit my application and submit it. That's been really helpful. And also thinking about how having conversations about how he's supporting me and how he's going to continue to support me when I'm in medical school and a physician, and being able to help me focus on my career so that we could start a family together and I could grow my future medical practice. That has been really important. So having people in your life that are supportive and are there to cheer you on and help you, and also be there when you have really disappointing aspects of your life. When you're applying to medical school, you're going to be rejected so often and by many schools, and it's going to feel really awful. But having someone who loves you and cares about you tell you, I'm still proud of you and you should be proud of yourself too, is really important. That happened just today. I got a rejection from a school and it felt really awful. However, I had Aaron, my partner, there with me to remind me, you've gone into a school already. It's okay. You worked so hard, and this isn't a reflection on who you are. You're just not a match for this school, and that's okay.
Yeah, and something that a lot of people don't think about, like this is kind of why people go into medicine, is the human connection and interaction. So that's powerful. That's very powerful.
I also think that one of the biggest reasons why people don't continue down a path of medicine when they're starting, and what deters them, is the rejection. Because it's so competitive and it's so prevalent, you hear stories of students who apply to medical school 5 times until they get in because they're rejected each cycle. And that's really scary and challenging. And I can understand how that feels, to be scared of that and not want to go down that path, because it's easier for me, for example, if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna not even apply because then they can't reject me. But then you don't get 100%. I'm gonna totally butcher this quote, but you don't get 100% of the shots you don't take. Did I say that correctly?
100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly, Elon. And that's what's important. Taking those shots and pursuing those opportunities.
Yeah. And for me, like just in my like limited experience in this, they're not face to face, like in front of you being like, you're not going to our school. It's like a letter, and they're very I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they're very nice about it. They're like, we've reviewed your application and we had some better applicants this cycle. Have a nice day, I guess. So is that right? Did I kind of mess that up?
More or less, yeah. You got it you got it.
All right.
It doesn't make it any easier though when they
I guess.
get you in that way. When you get that email and you're like, oh, the school's gonna accept me, and then you click on it and it's a rejection. But there's many different reasons for this. For example, I applied to schools in Washington, and I got immediate rejections because I'm not from the state of Washington, which is understandable. They have a mission to serve patients in Washington, and they want to accept people from that region. And you have to understand that every school has a different mission, and you need to fit it. And if the application community sees that you're not a fit, well, there's a lot of other schools that you are a fit for. So just staying true to yourself and staying on a clear path and understanding it doesn't say anything about me is really important. And
Yeah.
looking into the schools before you even apply to them is really important. I made the mistake of not researching those two schools beforehand. I just thought that they were really interesting schools and they had programs that I was fascinated by. However, I made the mistake of overlooking that they didn't accept people from different states unless they had a really close connection to the state. So,
So how would somebody find out that information? Kind of like walk us through the process of obtaining that.
yeah, so Reddit is a great resource. There's a pre-med group on Reddit, and they post a lot of really interesting information. I would say you want to pick your top schools and do research on them and understand what about them makes you excited about going there. Because at the end of the day, you're not applying to medical school as a general thing. You're applying to schools and the programs that they have and the students that will also be your peers and the faculty members. So what about that school makes you excited to go there?
Yeah.
And you understand. Go ahead.
Are there a lot of like secondary essays that are asking specifically like why do you want to go to our medical school?
I think every single school has one of those questions. So that's a good question to answer ahead of time.
Okay. So Reddit, basically.
Reddit, also their website, you can go on their website and search University of Nevada, Las Vegas admissions. And a lot of these schools host Zooms for admissions, and you can ask those questions there, or don't be afraid to email the admissions committee directly, even as a high schooler, and ask them about the admissions program and ask them these questions. Obviously, do your research yourself and look at their website, but ask them these questions, and you can even schedule meetings with them. And if they're not able to do so, they can refer you to resources, send you links, or even send you Zoom meetings that are for multiple students so they can answer multiple students' questions at a time. So they could point you towards the right direction. I would say early on, thinking about the schools you want to go to and cultivating that list ahead of time is really important.
How, I guess, available are these admissions officers to go and just have a chat with you? Or how receptive are they to emails? Do they respond quickly, or are they kind of like waiting a few weeks before getting back to you?
It's really variable. I've had admissions committees email me back in 5 minutes, and I've had some committees take a month to get back to me. So it really depends on the school and also when you're emailing them. Right now is a lot better of a time, actually. November, December, a lot of things have slowed down and they're not really looking at applications at this time, so it's a good time to email them. But if you're emailing them right at in the thick of things when hundreds and thousands of other students are emailing them in May, June, July time, then you're probably not going to get a response really quickly. But I think emailing them at anytime. Earlier is better. You'll get a response eventually.
Yeah. So this is a concept that goes for basically anytime you're applying to any school, any schools, is just cast your net super wide. And then kind of with that, just kind of ask everyone as much as forgive me, as many people as possible, and you'll get probably similar responses, but those little tidbits you get are super, super useful in just crafting an application.
Yeah, I also think it's important to ask questions that maybe you can't even find on the website. For example, there were some schools that didn't have a medical Spanish program, and that's something I'm really interested in doing and having classes that teach that so I can serve the Spanish speaking population. So, and some schools didn't have that on their website. They didn't have the information about that. So you could send emails to schools about the programs that they have that aren't on their website, or ask more details about those programs, and ask if you could get contact information of program directors so you can email those program directors and get more information about those things, because that's the reason. Those are the parts that make up the school: the research facilities, the faculty members, the type of research that they are known for. Those are the things that you want to ask about and understand more. And it's going to help you, one, in choosing the schools that you want to go to. And that's research that you're going to have to do anyway. So why not just do that earlier on and be able to have that knowledge in the back of your pocket?
Yeah. How selective should an applicant be about the schools they apply to?
I think they should be really selective, because at the end of the day, what's the point of applying to a bunch of schools if you don't have any intention of going there? At the same time, you want to apply in a way that, you want to be an MD, and you want to be an MD and an applicant that matriculates for the cycle that you're applying to. So you want to ensure that you're applying, fairly within your statistics as well. Do you have an MCAT score that is in the ballpark of the schools you're applying to? It doesn't have to be a hard, fast rule. I know people that had a 501 MCAT score that got into UCLA, which average MCAT score is a 514. Same thing with GPA. You don't want to use it as a hard, fast rule, but you also want to use it as a guide to be able to understand which schools are going to accept you. More important than anything is the values and the mission of the school and how you can fit into it. And some of them have similar missions: serving the community, how increasing diversity. Those are pretty standard missions, but things that are more specific, you want to look into those and try to understand how I could fit into that.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who just think that, med school is med school, and you just wherever you go is where you go, and that's the end of it. And I think to an extent that's not a harmful mindset, because if your goal is really to get an MD, then whoever's giving out MDs is like you want to get from. But I think like more recently, kind of in I guess the modern application era is a lot more focused on you and what you want and how you apply. So I don't know. I'm still gonna apply a bunch of places, but whatever.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to apply to a bunch of places. You're probably a fit for a bunch of places. You also want to You're also spreading yourself very thin if you apply to too many places, because you have to submit secondaries for each of these schools. You have to pay a fee for each school, which can get really expensive. Not only a primary fee, but a secondary fee as well.
Mhm.
And you're gonna have to do a lot of interviews and send update letters, and all of those things can get really tedious, and it can get difficult to do all of that. So my advice is to apply to schools that you are interested in and have some programs that you think is a great fit for you, but also have your top universities that you're like, this is a university that I'm really excited to go to, because you're going to spend the next 4 years at this university. You're also spending that time in different hospitals or clinics or rotating, but for the most part, you're going to be part of this university. You're going to be studying with your peers. You're you're going to get support from your faculty members. Is this a university that you can see yourself spending that time in, while also ensuring that you're going to get your MD or DO or any other program that you're applying to? You're going to get your degree, and I'm going to be happy here. And also think about what connections can you make at that school, and is it the best place for you to do what you want to do? Some schools don't have, for example, a really strong um, ophthalmology program, and if that school doesn't have those resources for you, then it might be more difficult for you to get an ophthalmology residency. So thinking about that and how that school can help you get to the next stage. It's difficult because you're always thinking about the next stage, but you have to, because when you're applying to medical school, you're in your third and fourth year, you're applying to another program. So you want to understand how that school can support you on the next step.
Yeah, that I think lots of pre-meds are kind of blind to the subject of residency because it seems so far away. But that's not it's not something I considered because, in my view, wherever you are, you can figure something out. Like for me, more recently, I was looking at like undergrad programs, and in undergrad programs, like, oh, we have the best like pre-med or pre-law or whatever, but in like this might be different for medical schools, but in my view, wherever you are, you can just make the most of it, and then you get into wherever you want, or wherever you get in, you make a choice, and that's what you got to do. So yeah, I don't know.
It's complicated. There's a lot of things that are on your mind as a pre-med, and a lot of responsibilities that you have to do, and also the idea of checking boxes always comes up. It's really important to reach out to people that have gone through this, and also reach out to people at your university. There's pre-med advisors out there. Some schools do better at pre-med advising than others. A lot of small schools sometimes have a better reputation. A lot of bigger universities who are known for having a lot of pre-med sometimes don't do the best job, but it's also a resource thing and how much resources are allocated to their pre-med department or committees. I think the most important thing to do when you're thinking about, for example, residency, is shadowing different specialists, understanding what they do, and spending time in specialties that you don't even consider. For example, radiology. A lot of if you're someone who's always thought about primary care, internal medicine, family medicine, try to shadow something that you're not used to, like radiology or hematology or surgery, something that isn't natural to you, so you can understand, because you might be surprised that that's something that you're really interested in, and you don't realize that until your third and fourth year. But knowing that early can set you on a really great path. You could join interest groups, you could do research, you could talk to your faculty members, you could really benefit from that.
Yeah, I want to go back to that idea of box checking because it's very infamous in pre-med culture and med school culture, all of these things. So, in your view, do you think box checking is something that should be entirely avoided, or something that should be like in the back of your head, but just kind of do what you're passionate about? And then hopefully that'll come through enough in your application so that admissions committees will see that, hey, what I did is what I was passionate about. Like I didn't do research because I was so bored by the concept, you know?
I think that you have to mold the box that you're checking into what is passionate for you or what you feel passionate about. So yes, you have to check these boxes. It's really important. A lot of universities benefit from research that's published by students, and they want to know that their students are going to come there and do research. So doing that shows the school, hey, I know how to do research. I've been on projects. I publish. I want to do that at your university as well. At the same time, you want to do something that you're interested in and something that you're passionate about and related to who you are as a person or the experiences you've had. For example, my grandmother, she had Parkinson's disease in her later age. And when there was opportunity to join a Parkinson's study and in the lab at Sumwell Institute, I jumped on that idea because it was my opportunity to understand more about my grandmother's condition and create and work on a new technology that could help people in the future. So that was something I was really interested in me, but other people might not be interested in Parkinson's disease. What interests you? What's something that's cool about you? What's your identity? What about you is special? So understanding that and trying to get more into that is really important.
Yeah. So kind of talking about like breadth that you were saying, like shadow physicians that you wouldn't necessarily think of their specialties interesting to you. Let's say someone is laser focused, like they know they're applying as neurosurgery, they're applying as neurosurgery, and like it's just written in the world's script that they are going to be a neurosurgeon. Do you think that even those kind of people should branch out and see maybe family medicine is actually what I want it to do, or something like that?
Of course, they say that you end up changing your specialty 3 times in medical school.
Yeah.
And you might end up, that might not be the case for you. You might end up going into neurosurgery because it's something that's really interesting to you and you're really passionate about it. Nothing has changed your mind. Neurosurgery is for you. But there might be something else that comes up that change your mind. Maybe you have an experience at a family medicine office that you're rotating at that just shows you what family medicine is about. And you say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I could have this impact on my patients. I didn't know that family medicine could do this for someone. And then you end up thinking more about it. And I think knowing that early on is really, really great. It's not a negative to think about that and pursue that later on, but it's even better when you have that ahead of time and can really mold your application and mold what you're doing to fit what you're going to be doing in the future. So I think even if you're laser focused and oh, I'm going to do psychiatry, I 100% I'm going to do psychiatry. There's nothing that could stop me. I was like that. I believed that I was going to do psychiatry, and now I'm leaning more towards family medicine, primary care. However, there might be a point in my medical school career that I go back into psychiatry, or I go into surgery, or I think about radiology. Those things are all possibilities because I might discover something that makes me feel very fulfilled and happy, and something that makes me feel like I'm going to be excited every day to come to work and do this thing. So exploring all those things is important, and also shadowing and exploring these different specialties helps you even if you're laser focused, because if you're able to, you are going to be working with different specialties as a physician. You're going to be having conversations with them. You're going to be working with them in your office. You're going to be sending reports to each other. At the very least, you're going to have a quick phone call with them about your mutual patients or an email. And understanding what they do and how they do it helps you so you can understand who to refer a patient out to. What are the difficulties that they go through so you can empathize with them. I think it's even important to shadow and work with, when you're a pre-med, other health professionals that are outside of physicians. such as pharmacists, physical therapists, audiologists, optometrists, because you get to understand what they do and how they help your patient. So I worked with a pharmacy, and I was shadowing a pharmacist and helping them with their day-to-day tasks for quite some time. And I was really able to understand all the difficulties that they go through. And when I went into primary care, I had so much more empathy for the pharmacists and what they're going through, and how what we do directly influences them, and how we can work together to make sure the patient gets the medication that they need, gets the right dosage, gets the right understanding the interactions between the drugs. And for example, pre-authorizations are a headache for doctors' offices. And we often work with pharmacies to try to get these medications approved.
Yeah. What was what was one of the resources that you found that really helped you get into medical school? You mentioned like Reddit was helping you a lot previously. So what are some other resources that are super useful?
I pride myself on being a very resourceful person. It's one of my superpowers, I believe. And there's so many things out there that could help you. There's different resources for every stage. So I can't answer this question as one, overall resource. When I was a pre-med, it was videos like Med School Insiders, or watching videos like the ones you make for your audience, and trying to understand more about what it is to be a physician, what are some of the pitfalls you should avoid, what are some of the things you should do. And then when I got more set on my goal and I started taking classes, science classes, Khan Academy was amazing, the Orgo tutor. And then when I was taking my MCAT, there was a lot of really great resources. There was Altius, there was Blueprint, there was Jack Weston, they had podcasts. And then my point being is that I can't give you one resource, and every resource is going to be different. Every resource is going to work differently for each person. I just think that the important thing is to go on Google and search resources for MCAT studying for people who are struggling with biochem. And then go on Reddit and then find a website and try it out and see if it's for you. Or if you need more practice exams, going and searching and you can't afford them, searching free practice exams. And there's a bunch of free MCAT practice exams out there. I didn't pay for one MCAT exam, and I'm really happy with the score that I got. So being able to look that up and find what works for you is really important. And there's a lot of resources out there on Reddit. So I think the overarching actually is Reddit, now that I'm talking about it. But going there and seeing what resources work for other people and the pros and the cons. And I know I'm talking a lot about the free resources that are out there, but it's not a bad idea to pay for some as well. And you will have to pay for some. I paid for Grammarly because I wasn't going to submit anything without it being grammar checked 5, 6, 100 times. So Grammarly was one of the things that I had to pay for. It was a requirement. And that might be something different for someone else. They might say, I actually do need to purchase Jack Weston. I think it would be really helpful for me. Or I need to pay for someone to review my application, or do mock interviews with me. That's okay. Just know what you're struggling with and what's going to be the most difficult thing for you. And then look at all the resources, try out the free ones first. A lot of these resources are on a freemium base, which means that you could use them for free. But if you want a premium version, you could purchase those and then say, okay, I really like Jack Weston. I really like their questions. I'm going to purchase the full Jack Weston subscription so that I could do well in my MCAT.
Yeah. And it's like what you said, is strategically picking things to spend your money on, and not just kind of like, oh, like I found this one MCAT practice test and I really want it. So you just kind of throw your money at it and it wasn't that good. And,
throwing your money at these resources aren't going to give you what you want. If you pay $5,000 for an MCAT prep course, you are not going to get a 515 plus if you're not willing to put in the work. What I mean is that these resources are going to be there for you, and they're going to help you, and they're going to be a support, but you also have to put that hard work in with them to make them work. Even if you use, for example, I know a lot of people were using AI services to help them write. However, these AI services aren't going to work if you're not helping them and editing it and then putting it into your own words so it doesn't sound like it's AI and making it an authentic and original piece. So I think that even if that's the path that you choose to go towards, you have to put in the work. There's no shortcuts with writing. There's no shortcuts with the MCAT. You can work smart and not work smarter, but you're also going to have to work harder as well. There's no way around it.
That's the pre-med way, is work smarter and work harder.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So for you, what do you think was the simplest part of the application, and what was the most difficult part of the application?
The simplest part, that's a hard part. I don't think any of it was simple. I think the most straightforward thing for me was taking all the classes that I needed to. So taking my organic chemistry and I'm blanking on the classes right now, but the physics and all the classes, biology, all the classes you need to take, really simple. And I honestly made it hard on myself because I didn't know which classes I needed to take. I felt like, oh, they don't really talk about it. You can go on the MSAR website that's on the AAMC, and each school outlines the classes that they want you to take and which ones are required, which ones are recommended. So I made it a lot harder for myself. I think that was the easiest part. And then the hardest part for me was making the application itself, writing my personal statement, writing the descriptions of all my experiences, the secondaries. That was really difficult for me and was really painstaking process just because I'm not the best writer. And I knew why and I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to communicate it. That I knew it in the back of my head and I knew it, but I had to bring it to the surface. I think that was the hardest but most useful thing for me.
Yeah.
So,
I saw like a Instagram reel, and it was like pre-meds thinking that biology and organic chemistry is going to tank their GPA, but then it's just the random like humanities course that was required for like a general ed or whatever.
yeah.
So I guess we're just not built to be writers. But
I think it's also that we don't take a lot of these classes that could help us. So I think that if I could go back in time, I would take a creative writing class, which could help me in that department, or try to do a lot of like journaling and writing and on my own to try to build up my skills. Also, sometimes you get into a certain mode of writing and it's hard to break out of that. So I was a psychology major at UCLA, and we had to write a lot of papers. So I was good at writing for psychology classes. I was good at writing psychology papers and writing it like a research study. And you get into this mode of writing, and it was very hard to break out of that. So when I would ask people to read my papers and give me feedback, they would say, you're writing like you're trying to publish this in a journal. This isn't gonna be a published paper. This is a paper that you want the application committee to be interested in reading, to be engaged in. You want to write it in a creative way. So I think taking a creative writing class, trying to write more about yourself is really important.
Yeah. Do you think that if somebody is kind of, because there's so much writing that is even in like clinical medicine, like writing charts, or if you want to publish research papers, there's a lot of writing that just has to be done. So do you think if someone is really struggling with their writing, or is not even that, is like more interested in writing or like creativity or even like the liberal arts, do you think they should major in something that's not a science and, have more of that writing background if they're interested in it?
It's pretty difficult. I think that there's pros and cons to that. If you're on a pre-med track and you do a non-science major, it's going to take you a lot longer to finish those classes because you're completing other requirements on top of your science requirements. So for me, I took 5 years during my undergrad because I had to complete so many requirements for psychology and for my science classes that required. So that's a concern that someone should weigh. However, it could help you because you could use what you learned in a different field to enhance medicine. So, for example, if someone majors in philosophy, you could use your philosophy classes and your training in your undergrad to improve medicine and think about complex issues, ethical issues, and how to think about them and how to come up with solutions to them. So I think that it's to summarize, yes, I think it's really useful to be in different fields and different majors, but I also think it has to be something that you're passionate about, something that you are interested in, something that you feel like could improve medicine overall. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and this is kind of going off of, or back to the discussion of gap years, where like at UCLA they offer the extension classes, so you can just like take a few of those to finish out your requirements. Or I'm not sure if this is a place like in other places of the United States, but there's also like postbacks. Lots of people do postbacks. Boost your GPA, you get all your your requirements. So that's completely an option. So I mean, if someone is doing a non-science major and they're just like, yeah, I'll just do a postback, or I'll just do some extension classes like that, that seems like a viable path to me. But what do you think about that?
It depends. Are you willing to spend the extra year to take those classes? If yes, then definitely go for it. But if you're set on medicine and you're learning about something that you don't find interesting, I'm hesitant to name a major just because I don't want to offend anyone or say anyone's major isn't related to medicine. I think everything can be related to medicine. But let's say you're taking major X and you have no interest in major X, but you're doing it because it's easy. And even if it is easy, it is, and I'm saying in quotes because maybe it's a really hard major for other people. If you don't find it interesting and you're thinking, oh, this is such a waste of time, you're not going to do well in your classes. You're going to do horribly in your classes. Versus if you choose a major that you're really passionate about and it's a traditionally very difficult major at that university or in general, even though it's really difficult, you're going to do a lot better in those classes because you're really curious about it. You really love the subject. You're dedicated to learning it. You learn it on your free time anyways. That's the major for you. That's something that's going to really help you during undergrad. And also, you have to think about university is really expensive.
Yeah.
Are you going to spend that money extra year and the money it costs to even do a postdoc program, even if it is at a community college, for example, which is a lot more affordable? It's still a big expense. So
yeah, but what's an extra 20 grand more than? Just kidding. I don't know. It's way more, and I understand, but it's just, the joke of graduate with $600,000 worth of debt.
I
So
know. Yeah, you're going to be accruing a lot of debt in medical school as well. And there's no way to avoid that.
yeah,
But
literally, there's no way to avoid that.
there's no way to avoid it, but it's a good thing to think about because you don't want to be stressed financially. And I think another thing too that you want to think about is also it's great to balance work and school, and it's something that I did. However, if you're struggling in your classes and you're having a difficult time, it's totally okay to ask your boss for some time off. It's okay to say this is really difficult for me. I need to focus on school because your GPA is forever. Your job is temporary. You're focusing on a future goal. And I know that the money is really important, but there are programs at these universities and there's resources that they help you financially for a time. So take out, if you're in college and you working so you don't take out loans, I'm sorry, for a minute you're going to have to see your loan amount increasing, and you're going to have to focus on your classes and sign up for financial aid if you can afford it. If you don't qualify for financial aid, try to look at jobs that can balance your school academics and you know your job, and things that are flexible. So at Pierce College, I know a lot of my friends, they were tutors at the university, and that helped them because they were studying, if they're a tutor for Chem 60, which is the basic chemistry, and they were taking Chem 101, they're able to reinforce a lot of those ideas, and that helped them academically and also helped them monetarily, and to keep a job and have that experience as well. And a lot of people in medical school do that too, because it not only uh, helps them gain a little bit more money and helps them financially. It helps them reinforce concepts that they learned previously, which helps them with step exams.
Mhm.
My point being is become a tutor when you're in college because it helps you in every aspect.
All right, that putting that on the list.
Yes, tutoring is amazing.
Yeah. So wrapping up my last few questions, what do you think was the most valuable thing that you learned on your pre-med journey?
My most valuable thing is not comparing yourself to others. And that's a really difficult thing to tell a pre-med. You're often comparing yourself to people in your class who are applying the same cycle as you, who've applied 3 cycles before and are fourth year in medical school while you're applying. And I speak from experience because I still am working on this, comparing myself to others. However, I do think that it's really important to remember, if you compare yourself to someone who's above you, you're going to gain that motivation to do better and to learn more and to grow. And however, it's going to probably make you feel inadequate. If you compare yourself to people who are below you and quote unquote below you, and you feel uh, you're doing better, then you're going to feel great, but you're going to stay in the same place as yourself because you're not going to feel motivated to grow. So the best thing to do is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, because you get the benefit of feeling great because you've grown and you've improved, while also thinking about how you could motivate yourself to do better. How can I be better than the Elon I was yesterday? That's how you should always be thinking. And that's the most important thing I've learned from this process, because it's something that you constantly do and it makes you feel awful, and you just have to learn how to stop it in its track.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy, as they say.
Yeah. But comparing yourself to yourself is not a problem. Compare yourself to yourself all the time, and you'll always grow.
Yeah. Now, my last question.
Yeah.
This is kind of the whole thing has been advice for pre-meds, but what was like the last most important thing that you could tell a pre-med early in their journey right now?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I think I would say keep your enthusiasm, you're really excited about medicine right now, keep that. When you get older, you get jaded, and it's really hard to get that enthusiasm and that excitement once you lose it. But if you're able to cultivate it and be true to your mission and what you stand for and your goals and your values, then you'll be fine. And also understand your values and map them out and guide your decisions and your behaviors towards your values. There's a really great resource by a researcher. Her name is Brene Brown. And she has a list in her book, Dare to Lead, that has 100 values. And when I was 20, I sat down and I looked at all those values and I circled the ones that I related to. And I was circling around like 50 of them, the ones I felt the most connected to. And I said, okay, now I have to narrow it down. So I narrowed it down to 25 and then 5 and then 3. And then I use those 3 to guide all my decisions. So mine are growth, compassion, and kindness. And in every decision and every interaction I have to stay true to those values. And your values might change as you go, but having those set is really important, so you know what next steps you should take. There's a lot of quizzes out there online too that you could take that help you map out your values. So be value oriented, be value driven, and understand what they are so you could be on the right path.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole theme is knowing your why and sticking with it.
Knowing your why, but not beating yourself up if you don't know your why. It's okay to not know. Just do some introspection, journal, meditate, do breath work, do a sport that you enjoy, kayak, and try to think about, why do I want to do this? And then write it down so you can have it for later. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, write stuff down and know your why. That's the moral of this interview, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it after a long day in the clinic. So, yeah, just keep on going, I guess. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Elon. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking this time to do this. And thank you for making this amazing resource for a lot of pre-meds. It's a really challenging time to not know what you need to do next, but it's going to fall in place eventually. And sometimes you don't know what you need to do until you experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you experience it, it just all makes sense. So I think just experience it for yourself. Don't be afraid of rejection, and just do what you're doing, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Those are some very encouraging words for a very neurotic group of people.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you again. I really, really appreciate you being here. And yeah, I'll see you around.
See you around. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. If you don't mind, please leave a like and subscribe. And with that being said, see you in the next one.